Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for joining us. Today we're going to cover a lot of ground. We will begin by defining just what marketing is. We will then talk about marketing research, focusing on some of the best methods available to temples, and then we will discuss putting it all together in a marketing plan. Please feel free, as Adam said earlier, to submit your questions in the question box. We will try to take a few questions during the webinar, and I will respond to all of the questions by email that we cannot get to during the webinar. We will also record the webinar so that you can listen to it at a later date and have other members of your congregation listen to it as well. Marketing has an image problem. Someone should probably draw up a marketing plan for marketing. In the nonprofit world, and especially in faith communities, there is often a misunderstanding of what marketing is and why it would have value for our community or organization. Marketing is not the end of the world as we know it, and it is not an attempt to bamboozle the unwitting consumer into buying something they don't want or joining something that they are not interested in. A marketing strategy, or a good marketing strategy, encompasses all of these: advertising, public relations, promotion, and more. Marketing is not about you or your congregation, but it is actually about the congregant. It is trying to figure out what the needs of our congregants are and how we can make sure that they get the most out of their experience of being a member of our community. Marketing involves a lot of things. It is a tool to help you determine what it is that your congregants and potential congregants want from your temple. We have two constituencies in our congregations. We have the people who are already members, and we have to constantly market to them, otherwise we risk losing them. And there's also that untapped market of potential members, people who might join our congregation. And marketing also helps you get the message out about what your temple is offering. Many of us have great programs at our congregations, but too few people know what we're doing. Sometimes even our own members don't know what we're doing. Marketing can help us solve this problem. A marketing plan can have far-reaching implications for a synagogue. A little market research can help you figure out what type of financial commitment to expect from members, and if your religious school tuition is in line with other nearby schools. Doing a little bit of research tells you where you are as opposed to other congregations or organizations in the community. Are you outpricing yourself, or are you underpricing yourself? A marketing strategy can also help you determine and develop your brand, which helps you stand out in a crowded market. In other words, marketing is about a lot of things, but as much as marketing is about a product or a service, it is even more about the people who buy or use a product or service. Just think, not too long ago, doctors and lawyers didn't advertise. Doctors who did were thought of as selling snake oil cures, and lawyers who did were considered ambulance chasers. Today, we often learn about doctors and lawyers through the ads they take out in the newspapers or in magazines that we read. When considering a doctor or lawyer, one of the first things we might do, in fact, is visit their website. And if they do not have a website, we might be suspicious. It is the same thing for a prospective member looking to join a synagogue. The truth is that no one has to join a temple anymore. Now, rather than thinking of that as bad news, let's make that our challenge. Our job then becomes figuring out who we are and what is our temple's personality. What makes us unique? Or as my colleague, Rabbi David Fine, likes to ask, What is our secret sauce? Even if we are the only game in town, we still have to stand out. That is no longer a guarantee of a built-in membership or ownership of a market. And if we are one of many synagogues, we can easily get lost in the crowd. Marketing helps us figure out what makes us unique and how we can communicate that. If there are any questions, please feel free to submit them in the question box. Let's go on to talking a little bit about marketing research. It is the foundation of all good marketing. Okay, that sounds great, you say, but where do we begin? This is the part that most people do not like. Like when you're painting a room, no one really wants to spend all that time putting tape around windows and doors. Everyone wants to get to the fun part of rolling out the paint on the wall and seeing the beautiful new color. Well, it's the same with marketing. If you want to see great results, you need to do the prep work. And that involves some of these steps. Market research involves surveys, interviews, roundtables, focus groups, all of these and more. Marketing research helps us be focused, and it helps us learn what the priorities of our congregants are and how we can make them our own. Research helps us figure out who our congregants are. Believe it or not, we may not have all of the demographic data we need to make informed programming choices. Research also helps us learn what our congregants want. We may think our congregants are not shy about letting us know what they like or do not like. The rabbi's sermons, the cantor's voice, the food at the oneg, the list goes on. We've all heard these things. But we may not know, for example, that young families would like child care during services, or that some members would come to services more often if they could get a ride, or that there is interest in a daytime class for adults. Research can prevent us from offering lemonade in the midst of winter when what our members really want is some hot chocolate. These are some of the most basic marketing research tools: interviews, research, surveys, focus groups. Now, marketing research does not have to be expensive or complicated. Yes, you can employ a market research firm and obtain very reliable and sophisticated results. However, most likely that is not in many of our marketing budgets. But here's the good news. You can also get a lot of great information by just asking a few good questions. Let's take a look at these 4 common methods of market research. Interviewing. With interviews, we meet with the key people of our congregation, those who are on the ground, those who are doing the business of the temple day in and day out, staff members, board members, committee chairs. These are the people that have a clear view of what's going on in the congregation and what isn't going on in the congregation and what could be going on in the congregation. Come up with a standard list of questions to ask. Don't make it too long or time-consuming. Otherwise, people won't give you the time that you want to do it. You can send the questions out as a questionnaire, but a better way is to have a few people actually interview staff members and lay leaders. Now, yes, this takes more effort, but one-on-one conversations will elicit more thoughtful answers. Look for similar answers to your questions to point you towards some important issues facing your congregation. So here are some sample interview questions. What is the reputation in our community? Who are our competitors? You may be surprised by that answer. What are the demographics of our membership? Interestingly enough, many people don't know that information about their own congregation. And then, are we meeting their needs? And what are their needs? and how could we meet those needs? Those who are involved in the congregation, the staff, the board members, and committee chairs probably have a lot of valuable information to share with you in response to these very questions. An important part of your research is learning what others are doing. You can learn a lot about a congregation by visiting their website or by reading their bulletin. Many congregations have their bulletins available through their websites these days. Visit their website, read their bulletin, find out things, find out what the cost of membership is in their congregation, find out what tuition is in their religious school, what time are they holding services, when does their religious school meet, do they have a social action program. You can glean a lot of information from a good temple website. So start there, read their bulletin, ask questions, and also look at some of the churches in your area. Don't only look at synagogues. See what the churches are doing. How do they reach their congregations? What's the language that they use? Have they come up with some compelling reasons to bring people into their congregational family? Trust me, churches are having the same issues around attracting members and retaining members that we are. We're not the only ones. So we want to see what they're doing as well. The other thing that we might want to do is look at some of the websites of large synagogues and even some of the mega churches around the country. They haven't attracted all of those people by accident. So take some time to visit them and see what they're doing. We can learn a thing or two from the big guys as well. We can't do everything that they do, but a lot of things that they're doing are things that we can replicate just on a smaller scale. I want to take a moment to respond to just a couple of questions that we've had. A couple of people have asked if these slides will be available to us. Yes, they will be available to you, so don't worry about taking notes. This will be posted and you can have access to them. Another important part of your research is learning about some of the other nonprofit organizations in your community. So think outside the box. What's the local JCC if you have one doing? Look at local museums' websites. Find out about some of the volunteer organizations in your community. The reality is that these days, many things compete for our time and attention. Learn more about other organizations in your area. What do they offer, and how do they attract people? We can always learn from them as well. Again, think broadly and about who you can learn from. Surveys are one of the most common tools of market research. Now, we often think of them as easy, quick, and inexpensive. And they can be those things. But we also have to remember that surveys do come with disadvantages as well as advantages. Most people do not respond to surveys. They get a very low return rate. You can send out a survey and get a 10% return, and that's not a bad return at all. So don't send out a survey to your congregants and expect to get 90% response rate. That's probably not going to happen. Even many of our own members do not have the time or will not have the time to answer a survey. It's just one more thing. It's just another message on the voicemail or another piece of mail that came in. So surveys often inadvertently focus on a congregation's weaknesses by asking too many questions about what we are not doing, what we are not doing right, or what people are not happy about. If you do a survey, think very carefully about the tone of the questions you decide to ask. If it focuses too much on the negative, people may wonder why they belong to the temple in the first place. We certainly don't want that. On the other hand, if it is too positive, members may feel this is just a gimmick to make people feel good about being a member, and that the temple is not really interested in what they think. Of course, A well-done survey is a good tool and can gather some very important information. A survey is easy, it's inexpensive, and it does have the potential to reach the greatest number of people in your congregation. Even if people don't decide to respond to the survey, you can create some goodwill by sending out a survey, because then everyone in the congregation knows that the congregation is actually interested in receiving input about what the congregation is doing and what the congregation could be doing. This is a great way to gather demographic data about our members. Ages, number of people in a household, family constellations, how long they have been members. All of these things are very important to know to help determine programming for the synagogue, for example, or what the emphasis on worship should be. We can even ask if members are Jewish, non-Jewish, or have converted to Judaism. You would be amazed at how many congregations do not know this very basic information about their own members. Certainly, if the survey has the option of being submitted anonymously, many people will feel very comfortable sharing a lot of information about themselves and about their feelings of the congregation. One of the tools that we often use in long-term planning is called the SWOT method, and it's also a very valuable way to organize a survey. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The strengths are, what are we doing well? What is making people happy? What programs are going well? What classes are well attended? These are all things that we want to know about. Weaknesses. What could we be doing better? And again, it's important how we phrase this. It's not what are we doing wrong or what are we doing poorly, but where are areas for improvement? This is important information for us to try to learn. Opportunities. What things should we be doing that we are not? Are there areas that we have totally missed? Would a preschool be something our congregants want? Is there a need for daycare in our community that's not being met? Would there be interest in a daytime program for people with Alzheimer's to be housed at the synagogue? These are things that these are areas that we may not know exist, or needs that we may not know exist in the community, but would be very important to address if we knew about them. And what are the threats? What are the obstacles? Is there a new congregation coming into town? Are people moving out of our town? Is our community growing older? And this is something we have to address both in terms of long-term planning and immediate programming. These are things we also want to know, and we want to know what our members perceive as all of these, as our strengths, our weaknesses, our opportunities, and our threats, not just what we think internally as the staff or the leadership of the congregation. Now, focus groups can be a valuable tool for obtaining thoughtful information about our congregation. While it is probably the most labor-intensive form of market research that we will or could engage in, focus groups will yield the most nuanced information. Focus groups allow people to think out loud, to dream, to be inspired by others, and to engage in real conversation. It gives people an opportunity to freely express themselves and to ask questions of each other. What is the added bonus of a focus group? They can actually be a community building tool. Members meet other members who they did not know before, and they learn what drives other members and what they care about. Most people don't think of this as the added bonus of focus groups, but sometimes this, as a community building tool, building community, helping people get to know each other, becomes just as important as the information that we glean from the focus group. So keep that in mind when you're considering doing a focus group. Here are some simple ground rules that will help a focus group function smoothly. Designate a leader. someone who will be sort of the MC or the convener of the group. Also, appoint a note taker. This is very important. You want to make sure that you capture all of the wonderful ideas that come out of a focus group. Also, stress confidentiality. People should feel free to say what's really on their mind, albeit in thoughtful and polite terms, but they should know that they shouldn't have to not say something that is on their mind because they're worried that it will get back to someone at the temple. Pick an informal setting. Focus groups are really best done outside of the congregation if you can do it. Try to do them in people's homes. Make it feel like going to visit someone, not like a temple meeting. Limit the number to, anywhere between 10 and 20 people, and make sure you serve refreshments. That's really important in helping create the nice informal atmosphere that you want. One question that often comes up in determining who is invited to focus groups is, should focus groups be made up of a similar group of people or a diverse group of people? So there are a number of ways that you can do it. Focus groups can be done so that all of the people who have children in the religious school are invited to the same focus groups. The advantage to that is that people get to go to a focus group where they know that there will be other people that they know there, so that's often something that raises their comfort level, and that can really help spur a conversation about a very specific area, whether it's the religious school or worship or programming for older adults or for baby boomers or youth programs. If you have people who are all invested in the same area of congregational life, it's going to spur a lot of conversation. Another way to structure a focus group is by location. If you're a congregation that has a large geographic area from which you draw, that may be a way to do it. One of the benefits of doing that is that you then help people who live in the same community get to know each other when they may not. And that can spur the establishment of small groups or chavarot in your community. It can help people figuring out how they're going to carpool their kids to temple, or how some adults, older adults who may not want to drive at night, may get to temple by getting a ride with someone else who lives in the same community. Or when someone is ill and you want to set up a system where meals can be delivered to that person, creating a focus group around a geographic setting can lead to all of those things, again, as well as getting you all of the information that you wanted to glean from your focus group in the first place. And a third way of creating a focus group is to bring together a diverse group of people from different areas and different walks of congregational life. So that may be mixing within one focus group a member who's relatively new to the congregation, a member who's been there 10 or 20 years, a family with young children, an empty nester family, a couple of retirees. This creates a wonderful way for people who would never probably have the opportunity to know each other to meet each other. Often what happens is our congregations sort of divide into smaller congregations. We have those people who come to families who only come to family Shabbat. They never get to meet the members who come to the 8 o'clock service when the adult choir is singing. Structuring a focus group across different demographics of the congregation is a great way for people to meet each other. It also gives them an opportunity to hear what the needs are of other groups within the congregation. It gives the young families who have their sets of needs an opportunity to hear from the retirees about what they would like to have in a congregation. So there are several different great ways to structure a focus group, each with its pluses and minuses. So think carefully about how you want to structure your focus group, not only in terms of the information that you want to get from the group, but what long-lasting implications your focus group will have by creating community. With a focus group, one of the most important thing, obviously, is going to be the questions that you ask. These should be open-ended, and they should encourage participants to dream or to think creatively. So here are some questions that can kind of help that. The things that concern me most about our congregation are, if with a stroke of a pen I could change one thing about our congregation, I would. That's a favorite question that people love to answer. You know, anyone who's been a member of your congregation has a long list of things, maybe a short list, but definitely a list of things that they might change, whether it's I would like Hebrew school to start a half an hour later to we really need to ramp up to the Bima. Whatever it might be, it may be structural, it may be philosophical, it may be theological, but this is a great question to ask, and people really do respond very well to this question. And then the 2 or 3 most significant changes I would like to see in the congregation are, ask people to prioritize. We all have a long wish list, but it's really important to help people figure out, okay, if you had to pick just a couple, what would they be? This question can really help people narrow that down a little bit. Here are 2 classic focus group questions that always work and that people also love to answer. If you're going to use these 2 questions, have people break into small groups to do these. If our temple were a car, what make, model, year, and color would it be? Or if our temple were an ice cream flavor, what would it be? Having groups, doing this as a small group mixer is a great way actually to begin a focus group, especially if you have people in your focus group that do not know each other very well. If you've brought together people from diverse areas of the congregation or who don't live near each other, these are great icebreakers, and they'll also get you a great amount of information about how people really think about the congregation. Are we vanilla? Or are we Rocky Road? Do we have a mix-in of M&Ms? Figure out what your flavor of ice cream would be, or what type of car. Is your congregation a Lexus, or is it a minivan? This really helps you get a good idea of what the kind of persona or the personality of the congregation is. Now, what do we do with all of this information? We're going to review it, create a report, and share it. If you're lucky, you have the makings of a brand new mission statement. And finally, creating a marketing plan. So if staff and members of the congregation take the time and make the effort to participate in a survey or a focus group, make sure that the results are shared with everyone. It is not necessary to share the answers to every single question that you may have asked, but give people a summary of what was learned. Demonstrating transparency at this point in your marketing process goes a long way to generate a lot of trust in the process and a lot of buy-in from people. And it also starts to generate a little bit of excitement. At this point, you probably haven't come up with strategies yet or a marketing plan, but you can let people know and give them an idea of where everything is going. So share the report. You can put it on your website. You can make it a special mailing to members of the congregation. You can share the results at an annual meeting. And you can certainly put it in the temple bulletin or link to it from your temple website to the temple bulletin. But make sure you give everybody the opportunity to see some of the results, whether you do it as, the largest response to this question was, or a sort of an executive summary where you, in a few paragraphs, try to summarize all of the information that you learned. And like I said, you may find that this is going to give you the beginnings of a mission statement. In fact, when congregations are developing a mission statement, we often suggest that they do it by having small group meetings or focus groups and asking some of these questions, maybe a little slightly different questions, to determine what is the mission and vision of a congregation. So you may already lay some of the groundwork in your focus groups for a new mission plan. And finally, one of the things that you're going to do with all of this information, hopefully, is create a marketing plan. So again, I'll take a break and remind people that if you have any questions, please type them into your question box and we will try to answer them during the course of the webinar. So, your marketing plan. That's your next step based on what you learned from all of the research. A lot of congregations get to actually doing some of the research, but they never get to the marketing plan. They think it's going to be too complicated, too time-consuming, something that's too sophisticated for them to do. But it's really none of things. It doesn't have to be complicated or sophisticated, and you can do it. You can actually go online, you can Google nonprofit marketing plans, and you'll come up with dozens of different templates. Some of them are a little bit more involved, some are less involved. I'm going to show you my model for a marketing plan on the next few slides. But again, it doesn't have to be so sophisticated that you can't do it. So step one, the best plans are very focused and limited to just a few big goals. Don't try to tackle too much at once. Pick a few goals, maybe just 2 goals that are the most important things for your congregation to tackle right now. So here's an example. Integrate new members into the temple. Many congregations aren't exactly sure how to do this, and if you've heard back from your research that some of your newer members don't feel like they're really part of the temple family, that will determine that this should in fact be one of your main goals. And with each of your goals, as you're developing your marketing plan, think about how you're going to create communication goals to support your main goal. You want to make sure that whatever you're doing, people are going to know how you're doing it or what you're doing. So for example, if one of your goals is to integrate new members into the temple, one of your communication goals along with that is to feature perhaps an article about a new family in each issue of the bulletin. This lets people know who they are, so that people can, if they see them at an ONEG or picking up their children from religious school, can make sure that they welcome them. They can say, oh, I saw that article about you and your picture in last month's bulletin. Welcome to the temple. So make sure you're supporting all of your goals with ways of letting your congregation know about all of your goals. Each goal should have a specific target audience. While you may be tempted to say the audience is everyone, let's remember that one size does not fit all. And let's not fall into the risk of thinking that one thing is going to reach everybody or that everything that we do is really for everyone. So here are some samples of groups that you may be trying to reach. Potential members, those who aren't even yet members of our congregation. Families with young children, those who are 65 and older in our congregation. When you look at this, you can see clearly each one of these different groups is going to have a different way of being targeted because they're going to have different needs and they're going to have different ways of accessing your information that you're going to send them. Some of these people may like to get their information in a bulletin that comes in the mail. Others may want to just go to your temple Facebook page. Now that you have a goal and a target audience, you have to figure out what is your strategy. So a strategy could be a program. It could be having a Talmud study class in the office of a temple member downtown if you live in a city and a lot of members work in the city. So it could be a lunchtime Talmud study class. Or it could be tweaking something that you've learned from the research that you've done. Maybe a lot of people have said they can't come to services because it's too early or it's too late. Don't be surprised if you get both answers. But maybe that will help you tweak a certain existing function of the congregation, like what time services are offered, or what time religious school ends, or when the library is open. So with each target audience, think about what your strategy is going to be. So for potential members, maybe one strategy is having a Shabbat service for prospective members. For your target audience of families with young children, maybe your strategy is a Saturday afternoon program in the park. And if one of your goals is programming for 65 plus and they're your target audience, maybe one strategy or program is to offer a film series for them. We had a few questions in. A few people wanted to know if this will be available online. And yes, we will definitely be recording the webinar, and it will be available, and the slides will be available as well. Another couple of questions are, how would you market a service to prospective members outside the temple? That's a great question. So sometimes we have to go to them. So you want to think about if you're marketing a service to prospective members. I'm assuming, Jeff, that you meant a worship service, like Shabbat service. How do you market that to people who are not, yes, you're telling me yes, that was your question. How do you market that to people who aren't already members of the synagogue? Well, a lot of those people may go visit your website, so make sure that it's easy to find from your website what time services are. If there's a community calendar in a local newspaper, that's a great and often free way to let people know about a service, and often newspapers will pick it up if it's a special service. So if you make a big deal about the fact that it's a Shabbat, a live format, or a family Shabbat, or that the adult choir will be singing, that often piques the interest of the paper, and they'll put that in their community calendar. Another way might be flyers in places like a community bulletin board at a synagogue. I mean, not a synagogue, a supermarket, or in a store, or a community center, or at the local Y. They often have community bulletin boards. So that's a way of letting people know about it. The other thing that congregations should try to be doing is, whenever they can, capturing email addresses of people who have either sent an email question into the congregation for information, or called the congregation, or who have visited the congregation. Even on a Friday night, make sure that there's a way to get people's email addresses if they're a visitor, or if it's the first time they are coming to the synagogue. Here's another question. How best to do a survey? Perhaps a 3-question survey. Sure. You know, your survey can be, I wouldn't say as long as you like it, because that could be problematic, but certainly as short as you like it. If it's a short enough survey, that will entice more people to actually make the time, because it won't take too much time to answer it. So you can have a 3-question survey, particularly if the 3 questions are related. If you're really trying to focus or drill down on a particular area of congregational life, that conveys to people that even though you're asking only 3 questions, you are serious about it. So that might not be a bad idea at all. Let's move on. Okay. So now we've identified a goal or goals. We've identified a target audience for each of the goals. And we have a strategy that we are going to implement. Now we need a tactic, or ways of communicating or publicizing what we're going to be doing. Make sure your tactics are compelling. If you're going to take out an ad, ads that get the best response are those with photos in them, not a lot of text. Think about the ads that you respond to. When the Gap takes out an ad in a newspaper or magazine, do they have a lot of text, or do they have a few pictures of people wearing their clothing? So think about that. Now, I can imagine that many of you are saying, but we can't afford to do that. Well, if you can afford to take out the ad, we can do the ad for you. Here's a little shameless plug. The URJ has camera-ready ads, great black and white photos with close-ups of people that people really do respond to, and they can be customized to include your contact information on the bottom. Just send me an email and I'll tell you more about it, or go to the marketing page of the URJ website to see our ads. Also do things on Facebook. More and more people are using Facebook as a way of connecting with each other and also connecting with organizations. So post in information on the Temple's Facebook page. Make your tactics as specific as possible. That's the best way that you're going to get people to respond to them. So here's another question that came in. One challenge that we have is there are many, many activities going on. Sometimes people who are putting on one of the activities feel that their activity is getting lost in the shuffle. How can we ascertain whether this is the case or whether that people just aren't interested? How can we find out how people are finding out about events? What's working, what's not? Well, that's a great question. One of the best things a congregation can do is have an overall temple calendar and have regular calendaring meetings that involve both staff and lay leaders like committee chairs, so that they make sure that programs aren't overlapping necessarily, so that you don't have to force people to choose one program over another. Though the reality is, if you're from a large congregation, that's likely going to happen, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. You're going to have a lot of programming, and that could be a really good thing. But how do you find out what people, when they come to, how do you find out how they got there? How did they learn about it? Very simple. Ask them. Make sure you've got someone there ready with a little clipboard to ask people, how did you find out about the program? Did you come to Temple and hear about it at the Friday night announcements? Did you go to our website? Did you learn about it from reading the Temple bulletins? These are all most likely the ways that people find out about your programming, but you're right, it is important to find out if people are using it. And also other information. If people say, well, I went to the website, but I couldn't find it, that tells you that you've got to do some updating of your website and make it a little bit more user-friendly. So asking these questions can glean a lot of information for us. So don't be shy about asking people when they come to a program, even members, how they found out about it. Joan just asked, in wake of recent tragedies, how do we appropriately market open activities as well as let congregants and community know that we have security measures implemented? That's a very great and timely question. Each community tries to figure that out for themselves. Many congregations now have someone posted at the door, whether it's a security guard or just a few members, that often sends a message to people that the congregation is keeping an eye on things, and that may make people a little bit more comfortable. So don't hesitate to have people standing by the door. Most congregations don't necessarily let non-members know that there is security now, if that's what your congregation has done, but you can certainly let your members know. If you've decided to implement certain security measures, you can certainly let your congregants know that through your temple bulletin or even on your website. And the website certainly lets larger community, members of the larger community who aren't necessarily members of the temple know that. So there are, if you feel like that's going to increase the comfort level, to let people know that you do have security at the temple, that you've got a camera, by all means let people know about that. At the same time, we also want to make sure that people know that despite these recent events, we're not closed to them. We're still open to new members. Step 5 is your work plan, and this is very important. It will make sure that everything gets done. In a small congregation where this is being done perhaps entirely by volunteers, this is even more important to the success of your marketing plan. So make sure that every aspect of the marketing plan is assigned. If someone's going to contact a local newspaper, make sure you've identified the person who's going to do that. Is that the office administrator, or is that the chair of whatever committee is running the program? Make sure that everyone who's been assigned a task knows the task, and create timelines. And then make sure that whoever is in charge of the program, or whoever's going to be making sure that the marketing plan is functioning well, checks in with volunteers and with staff as well. Did you make contact with the newspaper? Is the ad going to be in the newspaper? Did we find out what we needed to about how far in advance information has to get to our local community newspaper in order to get into the community calendar? We also want to make sure that we're setting our volunteers up for success, so we want to make sure that we check in with them on a regular basis and follow up with them about any problems or challenges they may be facing as they're going about doing their volunteer work or their work for the temple. Okay, step 6 is the budget. Now, even though you were all muted, I can hear your laughter. Budget? What budget? Before you assume that you cannot afford to advertise, look into it. Find out what it costs to take out an ad in the local paper. It may not be as expensive as you think it is. Or you may learn that you don't have the money right now, but perhaps it can be put into the budget for next year. If it's not in the budget, as you well know, it may not be able to happen. But keep this in mind so that when you're coming up with a budget next year, you can actually say, we need X amount of dollars in order to advertise the congregation more effectively. We can't just do it for free. But don't forget to explore the many things that you can do for free. Community newspapers, calendar listings in the local press, cable TV, your own website, and social media. The internet and social media have helped create a much more level playing field for nonprofits. Any synagogue, even the smallest synagogue, can have a great website that is very attractive and welcoming to prospective members. If you haven't looked into our own URJ Web Builder 2.0, I encourage you to take a look at that. It's a completely free program, and we have state-of-the-art website hosting services for you, complete with great design features, things that you can do on your website like little videos and slideshows of photographs and online registration for events, and even online bill pay. So think about having a website that is really great, and use social media. A few years ago, I was telling congregations you had to have a great website, and if you want to have a Facebook page, that's okay. Now I'm telling people you have to have a Facebook page. That's just become more and more how people are connecting with their friends and their communities, and having a Facebook page has really become one of the most effective tools in our marketing toolbox. So don't forget that. Don't overlook that. One of the most important steps is evaluation. After you've done all of this hard work of developing research tools, implementing your research tools, looking at all of the data that you've collected, and then creating a marketing plan and implementing the marketing plan, one of the most important things we can do is evaluation. Very often by the time we get to this stage, we don't remember to do this, but it is really important to evaluate all of the things that you've done. And when you're developing your tools for evaluation, think about how you want to determine or how you're going to measure success. Try to be as quantifiable as possible. Did more people come to this event than last year? Define a target number of new members who join after having attended the Shabbat service for prospective members. And you can use analytics to measure the effectiveness of social media. You can see how many people visit your Facebook page. If you're sending out emails, there are ways to track and see how many people are actually opening your emails. And if you have put links in your emails to back to other pages, let's say of your website, you can see how many people click on those links. So you can learn a lot by using analytics, and they're not that hard to do. But also keep in mind that congregational life is more than just numbers. One of the things that we want to evaluate is how people feel about the congregation. One of the ways, yes, that we can determine that is by how many people are showing up to certain things like services or events. But what's the buzz going on in the congregation? This is a little bit harder to measure. It's more art than science. But what are people saying? If the congregation has actually made specific changes, if you've changed the time of services, or if you've really done a lot to bolster your adult education offerings, what are people saying about them? And hopefully you're getting feedback. And if you're getting good feedback, remember to share that with the congregation. Share the feedback on your website. Share the feedback on your Facebook page. Share the feedback in your temple bulletin. Again, it's important to let people know what you're doing and what others are saying about what you're doing. So the best way to get where you're going is by having a roadmap. Just because it took our ancestors 40 years to get from point A to point B doesn't mean that it has to take us that long. We can do it in a lot less time. So I hope you've enjoyed this webinar and that you learned a thing or two about marketing in the time that we spent together. I have a couple of more minutes if anybody wants to send in a question. Howard asked if there will be a follow-up marketing webinar. Yes, that's the good news. There will be more marketing webinars. They are in the works now. We'll be sending out save the dates soon for them. But some of the topics coming up are going to include how to do a communications audit of all of your communication strategies. Are they consistent? Are you sending out more than one message? We'll also be doing a webinar on the essentials of PR. Learn a little bit about how to create an announcement or a press release, and we'll be featuring some of our own staff members along with me to teach you about the essentials of PR. We're also going to be doing a webinar on branding. What's your brand? Or, as I said before, what's your secret sauce? So we'll learn a little bit about how to make our congregation's uniqueness stand out. So if you have any suggestions for other topics, let me know, and we will be happy to consider those. So just send those to me at viapel@urj.org. A couple of people have asked about templates for nonprofit marketing plans. So if you send me an email, I'm happy to send you the slides from this webinar, which the last part was really a template for a marketing plan. Also, if you want to know, send me an email and I'll be happy to send you a couple of templates that I've seen out there in the nonprofit world, nonprofit marketing world that may be of interest to you. Like I said, you can just go to Google and put in nonprofit marketing plans, and you'll actually come up with some great plans, some marketing templates that you can use yourself. If you want to know more about the URJ website hosting, urj.org, which someone just asked about, please just go to the URJ website. Look under Marketing and Communications, and you'll see a link to RJ Web Builder 2.0. If you haven't looked into it, please look into it. It's a great source. So thank you all. I hope you've all enjoyed an hour together, and that you've learned a lot. And I hope you'll be in touch with me and let me know how we can also help your congregation meet its marketing needs. Thanks very much, and have a great day.